Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the weekly landscape update video that I'm doing this spring 2022 here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. This is a project that's been underway for a couple years now, and it's continuing to evolve. Lots of things happening in this landscape this spring. Right now, I'm currently at the kind of the peak of tulip season here. This dawn to dusk mix is beautiful. Got another space with them down here that I'll show you in just a minute. This overall little bed here didn't turn out exactly the way it was supposed to. The pansies are filling in pretty quickly, but the snapdragons were pretty badly damaged this winter, much more so than they have been in the past for me, and they should be in bloom now as well. But it's still beautiful. These tulips you can't really you can't really miss with this collection of tulips. Over here to my left, I haven't shown these orange pansies, I don't think, on one of these tour videos. And then there's some tulip on the corner over there called Akebono. They're closed up this morning. It's a double yellow. It's probably the prettiest of the tulips that I have, in my opinion. But again, this morning it's closed up. And then there's some azaleas on the foundation back there that will eventually be a front porch on this house. But in the meantime, they make a great spring backdrop to the colorful cornucopia of color that I have going on right now. Last year when the fence went in, some stones were placed at the base of it and the boards were kind of worked around it. And then this clematis, Dr. Rupel, was planted in those stones. It was a tiny thing, but it's come back big and strong here. I think by in the next couple weeks, as fast as these things come out of the ground, it'll be up to the top of the fence. You can see the first purple flower opening on it. And then right in front of that is some daffodils called Pipit. Just really great variety, really long bloomed. And panning back around this way, you can see there's another group of them back in the distance there. And then lots and lots of these dawn to dusk tulips interplanted with some white and yellow and purple pansies. We've had a little bit of near frost here in the last few days. And it's kind of been the perfect temperature actually for these pansies to really get going. It's early in the morning, and again, some flowers are kind of closed up. In the afternoon, it's much more showy, but the camera doesn't like it as much. But I think you can get the what this impact actually is from the video. Right over in this area, I've got some Peruvian Scilla. They're in bloom at the Ralston, the older ones that they have over at the Ralston Arboretum. Mine are not in flower yet, but so I'm anticipating here in the next week or two to get lots and lots of color on these, and they're very long bloomed once they get started. Sadly, this is probably the last time you guys will see this bed looking this exact way. I think these Sanne tulips will be done next week. By next week, I think the azaleas on the foundation will be pretty much past. The violas will still be going. The pansies will still be going. The Tahiti Daffodils back here will probably be done by the time we see this again. But I highly recommend these Tahitis. They're very long bloomed as opposed to some of the other daffodils in the landscape. But perennials are waking up. Other annuals will be going in. Other perennials will be going into this space. So it'll be a brief lull really in the, and this will be right back to, amazing color again. There's a variegated deutzia that's leafing out on the corner, and I don't even know that I may have shown it once in a full tour of the landscape, but here it is coming out in the spring, and it's probably, it's just a fantastic, a really fantastic piece here in this front bed. So this is a spot in the front garden that I like a lot. I like the pieces that are here. There's a dwarf oak leaf hydrangea up here in the front. There's a mountain hydrangea. This is a Miss Kim lilac that's actually about to flower. It's completely budded up. I think next week we'll see open flowers on it. And there's various other perennials coming up, hellebore blooming, interesting things, bulbs throughout it. The problem is, in the wintertime, wasn't much going on. The lilac is deciduous, the mountain hydrangea is deciduous, the oak leaf hydrangea is deciduous, and all the bulbs, of course, were asleep, a month and a half ago. So, here in Zone 7B, I can have interest, all winter long. So these little open spots that are in here, when I think about this space, I'll be thinking that I want something with winter interest in here. So, again, it won't be so completely dormant in the wintertime. Over to the right, the Spanish bluebells are starting to open up. Went and toured a garden yesterday in Raleigh, and these had just run wild through that garden. So each season when these come up out of the ground, you know, I think I'll just keep them, you know, in a space like this and not let them, you know, kind of have their way. Because I saw what can happen. They were beautiful, trust me, in a big giant swath like that. They're truly beautiful, but it was, you know, it had reached the point of probably being almost out of control. I'm in an area where we treat most tulips as annuals. There's some species tulips that will come back pretty reliably, but this was one from several years ago that, you know, came back. It's closed up this morning again if I film this in the morning, but see how beautiful that one is. But when they come back, you know, in future years, they don't always reliably flower. Here's several over here, you know, that don't have flowers on them. Just one does. The foliage definitely looks, you know, a little different, and just not as vigorous. But I thought I would show this one off. This is one that's returned from years ago. Here's a tree-formed Hydrangea paniculata that I started working on last year. Have it staked to a bamboo, actually a couple pieces of bamboo here. I need to re-tape this. When you use this stretchy tie, occasionally you need to cut it off and and put it on in a different location so it doesn't, you know, doesn't permanently, or, you know, doesn't scar the trunk on it. So I'll get to that in the next week or two. Any suckers down toward the bottom, you know, I'll cut off. And again, I pruned it to these three pieces to this height, and I should get at least 3 or 5 breaks, you know, from each of these as well. I think we'll see flowers on this by midsummer, but tree-formed hydrangea is coming along nicely. This was, I think, the first plant planted out here in this landscape. That's an October Magic Ruby Camellia. Foliage looks great. It bloomed during the winter time. You'll notice your camellias will be slightly off-colored, you know, in the late winter right now, coming out of dormancy. You know, as they're starting to, you know, put energy into new growth. But that's pretty normal. Snapdragons all over this landscape that are have great foliage and just no flowers. But I think here in the next week or two, we'll finally see some flowers on them. There's peonies coming up here and there in the landscape, and I'll show you another cluster of those in just a minute that are budded up. And then back behind it, there's some species tulips that are still flowering along the edge of the path. Really nice heucherella back here that is starting to bud up. Almost time for those to be in bloom. In fact, I saw one yesterday that was pretty much in full bloom, so I expect that same from that one next week. Back toward the back of the property, this solar flare azalea is about to start to open. This is one of Buddy Lee's introduction, who did Encore azaleas. We'll talk about a couple Encore azaleas starting to open in just a minute, but this is a fragrant native azalea that you can see the buds. I think next week we'll see some open flowers on them. This was a small plant when I put it in, so kind of impressed with how many flowers it's actually going to have on it in its first spring show off. Coming down this line, lots and lots of hellebores that I got last year, and I bought lots of hellebores in. I actually bought some in 6-packs, and so, you know, a lot of them I haven't seen flower because it takes a little while. You know, hellebores can be slow to get started, but there's one of them there. Show you a few more as we slide down. There's a Brunera here. I'll go ahead and show it off since we're passing by on it, the blue flowers on it. I'm going to have several more Brunera varieties along this back path garden. A lot of what I had done was, you know, it's good to test sometimes. You know, this is a plant that I love, but you don't always know whether a plant's going to perform, you know, where you're trying to put it. So rather than go and buy, you know, 7 different varieties of Brunera and wish for the best, I put one in, you know, looked at it here for a full season and said, okay, no, it's really going to like this back space. It's a dry, sandier soil back here, and so again, just wanted to test it first, but more will be going in. Here's another hellebore, and this is one that was bought as a 1 gallon. It was bought as a larger container, so, you know, you can see the difference, you know. But of course, these are expensive. You know, it's not inexpensive to buy a hellebore in a, you know, a well-established, you know, 3 or 4 year hellebore. Here's another one that was from a little, you know, from a little cell pack, basically. But I love that black. It's really amazing. I love everything about that one. And this is one that's just a slightly lighter version of the same thing. And I think these were from the same seedling pack, so you can see a variation in 2 different in 2 different seedlings there. And let's see, one more back behind this area, right there. I've got some rhodias here that I haven't cleaned up yet. I'm going to go in here and take out this foliage that looks a little rough, the older foliage, and the new growth should start happening on that pretty soon. Showing this little space off where things are coming back to life this spring. My Japanese maple that I have container planted that I've contorted over the years is leafing out. It's leafing out for the second time because we had a freeze burn the leaves off of it a few weeks back, but it's coming out from that again. This Mojo Pittosporum underneath it looks great with it, contrasts really well with it. And then there's a gardenia here that's just for, you know, something green year round. Same thing with another camellia in the background. And this gold foliage of this Miss Lemonabilia over there that I've talked about a week or so ago. But I love how all of these, this foliage texture and color looks together, especially here in the spring when everything's so vibrant. Here's the group of peonies that I was talking about. Several of these were here on the property already, and they got transplanted over here. There was a transplanting peony video if you want to go back and take a look at that, and buds are starting to form on them. These buds will be bigger and bigger here over the next couple of weeks. But again, anytime you divide, you know, peonies or plant new peonies, it is a few years before you can expect them to have the big, giant, impressive flowers on them, you know, that we love to see. So I expect this season will be better than last, but next year this will just be a full, you know, peony display here on this corner. One thing, next week I'll go through my Encore Azaleas as they start to open up. This is autumn lilac. It may actually be my favorite Encore Azalea, and I'll talk more about that next week. But it's, you know, by then I should have 6 or 7 varieties showing color. They're all budded up. These are Budlight Tulips. I had these last year. Probably were my favorite last year. I think the Akebonos might be this year with the double flowers, but Budlight just continues to shine. I've got some out by the front gate, and here they are on a back garden path. Just really beautiful. Again, you're looking at the tulip closed up in the early morning. They open up big and wide and take in the sunlight during the afternoon. Over to the left of it, I have this variegated Elysium. This variety is called Gray Ghost. You can see it with these spider-like flowers that they have in the early spring. They're very long bloomed because that flower right there will open, and you can see underneath my hand there's probably another 6 to 8 flower buds in each of these ends. So this will be blooming for quite a long time. Not necessarily the showiest flower on a variegated plant, but you can see why this variety is called Gray Ghost. Just really beautiful foliage. I bought this Chinese snowball, which will eventually be part of the screen along the side here. I'm going to tree form it over the years, but I bought it as a tiny little 1-gallon container last year, and I like buying plants that way. I like buying plants that are small and watching them grow over a period of time. But this one's gone from, you know, one little stem and a few leaves last year, and then in this first spring it's got 3 inflorescences, clusters, you know, on it, and they start out this kind of limey green color and get whiter and whiter. I think when we shoot this next week, if I show it off again, they'll be very, very vivid white, and then it'll start to put on some growth for this spring. Hopefully be up in here by the end of this season, and then next year have lots more flowers on it. So thank you guys for following along with these weekly update videos. There is a ton of things coming to life back here, and I think we'll lose a lot of the tulips this week, but we'll be gaining lots of perennials coming out of the ground, and a lot of the shrubs are budded up and ready to bloom. So thanks for following along.